Ever notice how some smells just, you know, they stick with you?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Well, today we're going to kind of dive into a story that's not just about a bad smell.
Okay.
It's really about how something so basic like our trash
Mm.
can totally bring a whole city to its knees.
Wow.
And we found this really powerful account on Eco Nightmares
Oh, yeah, I've seen that
on
show.
YouTube.
Yeah.
And it really lays bare the consequences of neglecting our waste.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we all know what happens if you just let things pile up.
Yeah.
But to see it on that scale.
Right. And it's not like a one-time thing.
Mm.
This was years in the making.
Oh, wow.
And it starts with this odor that's just awful.
I can imagine.
Way beyond your typical garbage stink. It was everywhere.
Yeah, that's what makes it so scary, right? Like you can't escape it.
And what's really striking is that the people living there just kind of tried to adapt at first.
Really?
Like, when something's inconvenient, but you just figure out a way to live with it?
Yeah, like when the subway is down,
Right.
you got to walk.
Exactly. So trash started piling up in the streets. Gutters were overflowing. It just became part of the landscape.
Wow. So they just got used to living in filth.
It seems like they'd step around and maybe complain a bit, but life just went on.
That's wild. I mean, how do you even get to that point?
Well, the Eco Nightmares account makes it clear this wasn't just a few missed pickups.
Right.
This was a total system failure.
Like the whole waste management system was broken.
Totally unreliable pickups where sporadic promises were made but never kept.
Oh, so typical.
And so what happens? People start dumping illegally.
Makes sense if there's nowhere else to put it.
Exactly. Overstuffed bins, vacant lots turning into dumps, even near parks.
Oh, no, not the parks.
It was everywhere. And, there's probably a lot of factors at play.
Yeah, like what?
Maybe the infrastructure was old, couldn't handle the growing population. Maybe not enough investment in services.
Right, it's never just one thing.
But the result was the same garbage creeping into every corner of the city.
Seems like it was taking over.
And then it gets worse.
Worse? How could it get worse?
Heavy, relentless rainfall.
Oh, no.
Not just a normal storm. This was intense.
So they already have mountains of garbage, and now they have floods.
Yeah, and all that accumulated waste just made everything so much worse.
How so?
Think about it. Plastic bags, food wrappers, organic waste. It was all clogging the drains.
So when the rain came, it had nowhere to go.
Exactly. It backed up, mixed with all that rotting garbage and chemicals, and created this toxic flood.
Oh, that's just awful.
It poured into homes, businesses, schools.
I can't even imagine.
The Eco Nightmares account describes families watching this filthy water seep into their homes.
Destroying everything.
Everything. Fridges closed, electronics all ruined, and the smell.
Must have been horrific.
Unbearable is the word they use.
Ugh. It makes you wonder how people cope.
And there was so much trash, it was literally being carried by the floodwater.
Like rivers of garbage.
It made roads impassable. The city was a giant landfill.
That's just a nightmare scenario.
And that was just the beginning.
There's more.
The contaminated water led to a public health crisis.
Oh, right. All those bacteria and viruses.
Waterborne diseases started spreading rapidly.
Like what?
Cholera, for one. There's a story of a mother desperate because her child is violently ill from the water.
That's heartbreaking. It really puts a human face on this tragedy.
It shows how quickly something we take for granted, like clean water, can become so dangerous.
And deadly.
The hospitals were overwhelmed. Resources were stretched thin. The authorities could only offer temporary fixes.
It sounds like they were completely unprepared.
The Eco Nightmares narrator emphasizes the irreversible damage to people's health, homes, livelihoods.
It's a stark reminder that ignoring basic needs like waste management comes at a huge cost.
For years, people just dumped their trash without sorting or recycling.
And it all built up until it finally exploded.
The streets, the rivers, the air, it all became poisoned.
It's a classic tragedy of the commons.
And it shows that what we throw away doesn't just disappear.
Right, it has to go somewhere.
It accumulates, it breaks down, and eventually it comes back to haunt us.
Literally.
The story then talks about the aftermath, the slow and painful recovery.
So what happened?
Well, with the city's systems failing, the citizens themselves started organizing cleanups.
Wow. So they took responsibility.
They sorted waste, tried to recycle, but the damage was done.
Yeah, how do you ever really come back from something like that?
It's a long road, and the trust in the authorities was shattered.
Understandably so.
But it also shows that we can't just rely on others to take care of our waste.
We all have a part to play.
That's the key takeaway. Ignoring waste is not an option.
It will catch up with us eventually.
The consequences affect everyone, whether you contributed to the problem or not.
And it really highlights the interconnectedness of a community.
For so long, people thought the trash would just take care of itself.
Like it would magically disappear.
But that attitude eroded any sense of shared responsibility.
And when the crisis hit, they were all left to deal with the consequences.
The story ends on a note of cautious optimism. They're focusing on learning proper waste management practices.
Like what specifically?
Sorting, recycling, reducing waste at the source.
It sounds like they're finally taking it seriously.
But they also acknowledge that rebuilding trust and changing habits will take time.
A long process.
This whole Eco Nightmares account is a powerful reminder that neglecting waste has far-reaching consequences.
It affects the environment, public health, the economy, even our sense of community.
It's all connected.
So what can we as individuals do about this?
We need to be responsible with our own waste support recycling initiatives and advocate for better systems.
It starts with each of us.
It really makes you think about the unseen costs of our everyday actions.
Right, like all that stuff we throw away, where does it go?
And how can we make better choices so we don't end up in a similar nightmare scenario?
It's something we all need to think about.
And act on.
Definitely.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. It's been
Yeah, definitely eye-opening.
eye-opening for sure, and hopefully a bit of a wake-up call.
Let's hope so.
Until next time.
See ya.